The great chamber of the Galactic Council was built to make visitors feel small. Its walls rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the ceiling. 12 thrones sat in a half-circle, each one holding a member of the elder species. These were the rulers of the galaxy. They had controlled the stars for 10,000 years. Ambassador Kang Yuna stood alone on the speaking platform. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Behind her, through the massive windows, she could see the endless stars. Somewhere out there, her people were dying. Counselor Mevith leaned forward on his throne. He was an insectoid creature with 4 arms and eyes that never blinked. His voice clicked and buzzed as he spoke. "We have called humanity here today to offer a great gift," Mevith said. "After 30 years of conflict with the Velari Dominion, we have secured peace for your species." Yuna did not move. She did not smile. Mevith continued. "The Velari have agreed to stop their attacks. They will withdraw from human space. In exchange, humanity will give them 5 colony worlds and pay tribute for 100 years. The other council members nodded. To them, this was generous. This was mercy. Yuna finally spoke. Her voice was calm but cold. "And what of the humans already taken? The millions in Velari slave camps?" Mevith waved one of his 4 hands. "That is an internal matter for the Dominion. We cannot interfere with their cultural practices." Cultural practices. Yuna felt the words burn in her chest. They called slavery a cultural practice. "I will take this offer to my government," she said. "We will give our answer tomorrow." She turned and walked out of the chamber. She did not bow. Far across the galaxy, on Earth, the message arrived within the hour. In the city of Sol, deep underground, the United Earth Command held an emergency meeting. Leaders from every nation sat around a great table. At the head sat Admiral Park Tai-Wu. Tai-Wu was 60 years old. His face was hard like stone, marked with scars from battles fought in space. His left eye was artificial, lost in the Battle of Colony Yongan 3, but the wound that hurt most was invisible. 3 years ago, his daughter Minji had been taken when the Velari raided Colony Hanum 7. She was 17. Got the room, watched the recording of the Council's offer in silence. When it ended, nobody spoke for a long time. "They want us to give up 5 worlds," said General Beek Sujin. She was younger than Tai-Wu, with black hair cut short like a soldier. Her voice was tight with anger. 5 worlds with 2 billion people. "And they want us to pay the creatures who murdered our children." "The Council calls it peace," said another leader. "The Council watched us burn for 30 years, Tai-Wu said. His voice was quiet but heavy. "They sold weapons to the Velari. They blocked our requests for help. Now they offer us chains and call it a gift." He stood and walked to the window. Below, he could see the streets of Seoul. People were living their lives. Children were playing. They did not know that far away, human slaves worked until they died in Velari mines. "Play the footage," Tai-Wu said. An aide pressed a button. The screen lit up with images that Earth spies had captured. Velari slave camps. Humans in chains. Bodies thrown into pits. Children separated from parents and taken to breeding facilities. Several leaders looked away. Some had tears in their eyes. "My daughter is in one of those camps," Tai-Wu said. "Or she is dead. I do not know which. But I know this truth. If we accept this peace, we abandon every human in Velari space. We tell the galaxy that our people can be taken, used, and thrown away." He turned to face the room. "I say no. I say we reject their peace. I say we go to war, and we do not stop until every human is free, or every Velari ship is ash." General Beek stood. "I stand with the Admiral." One by one, every leader in the room rose. There was no argument, no debate. For once, humanity was united. Send the message to Ambassador Kang, Taihu said. Tell her what to say. That night, shipyards that had been building in secret for years received new orders. 10,000 warships began final preparations. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives checked their weapons one last time. Pilots climbed into fighters and waited. Earth had made its choice. In the orbital dockyards, Captain Ru Hansu stood on the bridge of his destroyer, the Indomitable. He was only 32, young for a captain. His crew loved him because he led from the front and never asked them to do anything he would not do himself. He thought about his brother, Junho. Junho had been a teacher on Colony Daegu 4 when the Velari came. He had died trying to protect his students. The Velari had broadcast the attack as entertainment. Hansu had joined the military the next day. Captain, his first officer said, orders from command. We launch at dawn. Hansu nodded. Tell the crew to get some rest. Tomorrow, we start paying back what we owe. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Mothers kissed their children goodbye. Fathers held their families one last time. Everyone knew that many would not come home. But they also knew that some things were worth dying for. In a small fighter bay on the carrier Guangato, Lieutenant Choi Nari checked her spacecraft for the 100th time. She was 28, with quick hands and faster reflexes. Other pilots called her crazy because she flew like she had nothing to lose. They were not wrong. The Velari had taken everything from her. Her parents, her home, her planet. You ready? Another pilot asked. Nari smiled, but her eyes were cold. I have been ready for years. As Earth turned toward dawn, Ambassador Kang Yuna prepared for her return to the council chamber. She read the message from Earth Command 3 times. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to change history. The galaxy wanted peace. They would get war, and humanity would teach the stars what it meant to push too far. The council chamber was full when Ambassador Kang Yuna returned. Word had spread that the humans would give their answer today. Representatives from 100 species filled the viewing galleries. They had come to watch the small, weak humans accept their place in the galaxy. Counselor Mevith sat on his throne with something like satisfaction. He had done good work. The Velari were pleased. The humans would be quiet. Order would continue. Ambassador Kang, Mevith said, you have consulted with your government. What is Earth's answer to our generous offer of peace? Yuna walked slowly to the speaking platform. Her footsteps echoed in the massive chamber. She carried nothing. No papers, no tablet. What she had to say needed no notes. She stood in silence for a long moment. The crowd grew restless. Mevith's eyes narrowed. Ambassador? He pressed. Yuna looked up at the 12 thrones. Her voice was clear and steady. 30 years ago, the Velari came to our first colony world. They killed 40,000 people in one night. Children were burned alive. Families were torn apart. We sent a message to this council begging for help. She paused. You did nothing. The chamber was completely silent now. 25 years ago, the Velari began taking our people as slaves. Millions of humans were put in chains. They were worked to death in mines. They were bred like animals. We sent messages to this council every month for 5 years. Her voice grew harder. You did nothing. Some council members shifted in their seats. They did not like being reminded. 20 years ago, we asked the council to stop selling weapons to the Velari. We showed you evidence of what those weapons did to our cities. We showed you the bodies of our children. Yuna's eyes burned with cold fire. You sold them more weapons. In the viewing gallery, the Velari ambassador laughed. He was a tall creature with pale skin and black eyes, dressed in robes that cost more than most humans earned in a lifetime. His name was High Lord Cassith, and he found this very amusing. "The cattle are upset," Cassith said to his aides. "How entertaining." Una heard him. She did not look at him. "Not yet. For 30 years, she continued, this council told us to be patient, to negotiate, to accept losses for the greater peace. For 30 years, we trusted you. We believed that justice would come." She shook her head slowly. "We were fools." Counselor Mevith leaned forward. "Ambassador, you are testing our patience. Give us your answer. Will Earth accept peace?" Una finally smiled. It was a terrible smile. "No." The word hung in the air like a blade. "No?" Mevith repeated. His insectoid face could not show expression, but his voice carried disbelief. "Humanity rejects your peace," Una said. "We reject your treaty. We reject your council. And we reject the lie that the strong may devour the weak while the galaxy watches and calls it order." The chamber exploded in noise. Species that had been silent for centuries were shouting. Mevith raised his 4 arms for quiet. "You cannot reject peace," he said. "You are one species against the Dominion. You will be destroyed." Una laughed. It was a cold sound. "You do not understand us," she said. "You look at humanity and see a young species, a weak species. You see creatures who should be grateful for whatever scraps the galaxy offers." She turned slowly, looking at every throne. "But we are not weak. We are patient. We have spent 30 years building, preparing, waiting for the day when we would stop asking for justice and start taking it." High Lord Cassith stood up in the gallery. "This is nonsense. Humans are cattle. They cannot fight us. They are nothing but slaves who have not yet been collared." Una finally looked at him. Her eyes were ice. "You took my niece," she said quietly. "She was 12 years old. Your soldiers took her from her school while she cried for her mother." Cassith smiled. "I do not remember every animal in my collection." "You will remember her name," Una said, "because when our fleets reach her homeworld, I will write it on the ruins of your palace. Her name was Soman, and she was not cattle. She was human." She turned back to the council. 30 years ago, you taught us a lesson. You taught us that the galaxy does not care about justice, that power is all that matters, that the strong take and the weak suffer." Her voice rose. "We learned. We learned better than you ever imagined. And now we will show you what humanity does when pushed too far." She raised her hand. On the massive screen behind her, an image appeared. It was Earth's orbital dockyards, and rising from them, blocking out the stars, were ships. Thousands and thousands of warships, destroyers, cruisers, carriers, battleships, the size of cities. 10,000 engines firing at once. 10,000 ships moving toward Villari space. The chamber went silent again. But this time, it was the silence of fear. "We do not come to negotiate," Una said. "We do not come to threaten. We come to inform you. Humanity is at war. We will free our people, or we will die trying. And any species that stands in our way will learn why humans should never be pushed into a corner." She stepped back from the platform. "This council failed us. This council abandoned us. So we will build a new order. A better order. One where the weak are protected instead of sold." She began walking toward the exit. "Wait," Mevith shouted. "This is madness. You cannot win against the Dominion." Una stopped at the door. She looked back one last time. "Perhaps," she said, "but we would rather die free than live as slaves. And we would rather burn the galaxy down and leave our children in chains." She walked out. Behind her, chaos erupted. Species were screaming at each other. Mevith was calling for emergency sessions. The Velari ambassador was demanding immediate military action. But far away, in the cold darkness of space, 10,000 human warships crossed into contested territory. Their guns were loaded. Their crews were ready. And in the lead ship, Admiral Park Ti-Woo stood on his bridge, watching the stars pass by. "Send a message to all ships," he said quietly. "What message, sir?" His aide asked. Ti-Woo's scarred face was hard as iron. "Tell them, for Minji, for Juno, for Soman, for every human taken. Today, we bring them home." The message went out, and across the fleet, soldiers whispered the names of their own lost loved ones. The war had begun. The Velari did not believe the humans would actually fight. For 30 years, they had taken and killed and enslaved without real resistance. Humans were weak. Humans were afraid. Humans would make threats and then accept whatever crumbs they were given. They were wrong. The first fleet hit the Velari. Border Station Keth 7 at dawn. The station commander had just finished his morning meal when alarm started screaming. He looked at his sensors and saw 300 human warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They were already firing. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, Keth 7 was nothing but burning metal and floating bodies. Not a single human ship was lost. Across the border, similar attacks happened at the same moment. The second fleet struck the weapons factory on Moon Velith. The third fleet hit the slave processing center on Korath Prime. The fourth fleet jumped directly into the shipping lanes and began destroying every Velari cargo ship they found in 72 hours. Humanity had crippled the Velari military supply chain. Ships that were supposed to defend the Dominion could not get fuel. Soldiers could not get weapons. Communication stations went dark, one by one. Lord Kasseth received the reports in his palace. His pale face grew even paler. How is this possible? He demanded. They are cattle. Cattle do not fight back. His generals had no answers. They had spent 30 years believing their own lies. Now those lies were killing them. Admiral Park Ti-Woo led the assault on Colony Henham 7. This was personal. This was where his daughter had been taken. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn, and watched the planet grow larger on the screen. Velari Defense Fleet detected, his sensor officer reported. 40 ships. They are moving to intercept. Good, Ti-Woo said. Let them come. The battle was brutal. Velari ships were built for terror, not for war against equals. Their weapons were designed to destroy unarmed colonies, not to fight trained soldiers. Human ships cut through them like knives through paper. When the last Velari ship exploded, Ti-Woo gave the order. Begin ground assault. Find the camps. Free our people. Human soldiers dropped from the sky in thousands of landing craft. They hit the ground running, fighting through Velari defenders who had never faced an enemy that shot back. The slave camps were scattered across the continent, each one holding thousands of humans. Lieutenant Choi Nari flew cover for the ground troops. Her fighter screamed through the atmosphere, hunting Velari aircraft. She was a ghost in the sky, appearing from nowhere and leaving fire behind her. Enemy gunship at Sector 7. Her wingman reported .NAR. I did not answer with words. She turned her fighter and dove straight at the gunship. Her weapons fired. The gunship became a ball of flame. That one was for my mother, she whispered. She had killed 37 Velari pilots so far. She was just getting started. On the ground, soldiers broke open the gates of slave camp after slave camp. Humans who had been prisoners for years stumbled into the light, unable to believe they were free. They cried. They hugged their rescuers. They spoke names of loved ones they hoped were still alive somewhere. Admiral Ti-Woo landed when the fighting was mostly done. He walked through the ruins of the largest camp, searching. His guards tried to follow, but he waved them back. He found the cell block where the long-term prisoners had been kept. The walls were covered in scratched messages, names, dates, last words from people who thought they would die in chains. And then he saw it, carved deep into the stone wall. 2 words, Minji Park. Taiwu fell to his knees. His daughter had been here. She had been alive long enough to write her name. He pressed his hand against the letters, and for the first time in 3 years, he let himself cry. "Sir?" A soldier appeared behind him. "We found a survivor who says she knew your daughter." Taiwu stood. His face was wet, but his eyes were hard. "Where?" The survivor was a woman in her 50s, thin and weak from years of starvation. She had worked in the same mining section as Minji. She was strong, the woman said. Even when they beat her, she never stopped hoping. She always said her father would come. "Where is she now?" Taiwu asked. The woman looked down. "They moved her 6 months ago, to the labor center on Valari Prime. Only the strongest slaves go there. She was still alive when they took her. Valari Prime, the enemy homeworld. The most defended place in the Dominion." Taiwu nodded slowly. "Then that is where we will go." Meanwhile, the council was in panic. Councillor Mevith called emergency session after emergency session, but there was nothing they could do. Human fleets were everywhere. Velari ships were dying by the hundreds. "We must intervene," Mevith said. "We must stop this madness." "With what?" Another councillor asked. "Our peacekeeping fleet cannot match the human navy. They have been building in secret for decades. Then we demand they stop. We threaten sanctions." "Sanctions?" The councillor laughed bitterly. "They do not care about sanctions. They do not care about trade. They care about blood." The galaxy watched as humanity did what no species had done in 1,000 years. They challenged the established order. They fought without asking permission. They made the elder races afraid, and they were just beginning. Dr. Yoon. G.I. stood in the weapons laboratory of the research station Hope. She was 50 years old, a genius in physics and engineering. For 15 years, she had worked on a secret project, something the council had banned, something that would change the war. The weapon was called Sunfire. It used principles that other species had declared too dangerous to develop. It turned matter directly into energy in a reaction that made nuclear weapons look like toys. "The targeting system is ready," her assistant said. G.A. looked at the data. They had one prototype, one shot. It had to count. "Send the coordinates to Admiral Taiwu," she said. "The Velari Fortress Moon of Keth. It guards the route to their inner systems. If we destroy it, the path is open." The message went out. The fleet gathered. And when everything was ready, a single missile launched from the human carrier Sunrise. It flew for 30 seconds. Then it hit the fortress moon. For 6 heartbeats, there was a new sun in the Valari sky. The fortress moon, 3,000 kilometers across, simply ceased to exist. 40,000 Velari soldiers vanished in an instant. Their defense grid, their weapons, their ships. Gone. The galaxy received the sensor data within hours. Every species, from the mightiest empire to the smallest colony, saw what humanity had created. Fear spread faster than light. Councillor Mevith watched the recording again and again. The old order of the galaxy was dying. And in its place, something new was rising, something human. The war changed the galaxy in ways nobody expected. Species that had watched from the shadows for centuries began to whisper. If humans could fight the Velari, maybe others could fight their own oppressors. Maybe the old order was not as unbreakable as it seemed. General Beek Sujin led the campaign that broke the Velari Empire open. She was called the Ghost General because her fleets appeared where enemies least expected them. One day she was attacking a supply base in the outer systems. The next day she was destroying shipyards deep inside Velari territory. The secret is speed, she told her officers. Hit them before they can think. Move before they can react. Never let them rest. Her fleet liberated 12 colony worlds in 6 weeks. Each world held thousands of human slaves. Some had been in chains for decades. Some were children born in captivity who had never seen freedom. On the planet Velith III, Sujin walked through a slave camp that her soldiers had just captured. The Velari guards had fled when they saw human ships in the sky. They knew what happened to those who stayed and fought. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, stood in the doorway of a worker's barracks. She had pale skin and hollow eyes. She watched Sujin approach with fear and confusion. "Are you going to hurt us?" the girl asked. Sujin knelt down so they were eye to eye. Her voice was gentle. "No, little one. We came to take you home." "Home?" The girl did not understand the word. She had been born in this camp. "A place where you are free," Sujin said. "Where nobody owns you. Where you can run and play and choose your own life." The girl started to cry. Not from sadness, but from something she had never felt before. Hope.Sujin broadcast a message that day. It went to every human ship, every liberated colony, every screen on Earth. "We came for our people," she said simply, "and we will not stop until all of them are free." But the war had cost Captain Ruhanzu and his destroyer, Indomitable, were guarding the Salaith Gate. This was a narrow passage between 2 stars, the only safe route for civilian ships escaping Velari space. Thousands of refugees were streaming through. Families, children, the old and the sick. They had only small ships, no weapons, no defense. Hansu received a report at midnight. A Zelari battle group was coming. 40 warships, including 3 heavy cruisers. They were hunting the refugees. "How long until they reach the gate?" Hansu asked. 4 hours, sir." Hansu looked at the refugee convoy on his sensors. They were moving as fast as they could, but their ships were slow. They needed at least 6 hours to reach safe space. He made his decision in seconds. "Signal the convoy to keep moving. Do not stop for anything." "Sir, what are we going to do?" Hansu smiled. It was a sad smile, but a proud one. "We are going to hold the gate. 1 destroyer against 40 warships." His crew knew what that meant. Not one of them asked to leave. The battle began just after dawn. The Velari commander laughed when he saw a single human ship blocking his path. He ordered his fleet to destroy it and move on. The Indomitable fired first. Its missiles struck the lead Velari cruiser and crippled its engines. Before the Velari could react, Hansu was already moving, dancing between the larger ships, hitting weak points, causing chaos. "He is mad," a Velari commander said. "Kill him." But killing Hansu was not easy. He knew his ship better than anyone. He knew exactly how far he could push the engines, exactly how much damage the shields could take, exactly when to dodge and when to strike. Hours passed. Ships fell on both sides. The Indomitable took hit after hit. Fires burned in a dozen compartments. Half the crew was dead or wounded, but they kept fighting. Hansu broadcast a message to the refugee convoy every hour. "Keep moving. Do not stop. We are holding." After 11 hours, the Velari finally broke through. Their last heavy cruiser smashed into the Indomitable with everything it had. The destroyer broke apart, but by then it was too late for the Velari. The convoy had escaped. 20,000 refugees reached safe space because 1 ship and 1 crew refused to give up. Before the final explosion, Hansu sent one last transmission. His face was bloody, and his ship was dying around him, but his voice was calm. "Tell my brother I will see him soon," he said. "And tell them I held the gate." The message reached Earth the next day. Admiral Taiwu listened to it alone in his quarters. Then he ordered every ship in the fleet to honor Captain Ru Hansu with a moment of silence. Across the galaxy, the story spread. The Council tried to hide it, but they could not. A single human ship had defied an entire battle group for 11 hours. A single captain had given his life so strangers could live. This was what humanity was. This was why they could not be beaten that the Velari Dominion was collapsing. Their fleets were shattered. Their colonies were falling one by one. High Lord Cassif, desperate and afraid, begged the Council to intervene. "They are monsters." He screamed at Councillor Mevith. "They must be stopped." Mevith agreed to try one more time. He summoned Ambassador Kang Yuna to the council chamber. This time, Yuna did not come in diplomatic robes. She wore a military uniform with the rank of fleet commander. She had earned it in the battles of the past months. "The council demands that humanity cease its aggression," Mevith said. "You have proven your strength. Now accept peace." Yuna laughed. It was not a kind sound. "Peace?" She said. "You offer peace now? After 30 years of watching us suffer? After selling weapons to our enemies? After blocking every request for help?" She walked forward until she stood directly below Mevith's throne. "Where was your peace when Velari ships burned our colonies? Where was your peace when our children were dragged away in chains? Where was your peace when we begged and pleaded and received nothing but silence?" Mevith had no answer. "You taught us a lesson," Yuna continued. "You taught the whole galaxy that the strong take what they want, and the weak must accept it. We were very good students." She turned to face the viewing gallery. Every species in the galaxy was watching. "Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will not follow your laws. We will not accept your authority. We will build something better. A place where the weak are protected, where justice is more than an empty word." She looked back at Mevith one final time. "And we will finish what we started. Every human in Velari space will be freed. Every crime will be answered. And when it is done, the galaxy will have a new order, one that remembers what you forgot." She walked out for the last time. The doors closed behind her. In the silence that followed, Councillor Mevith finally understood. The galaxy would never be the same. The old ways were dying. And humanity was just getting started. The human fleet gathered at the edge of Velari Prime's solar system. 5,000 warships, the largest armada in human history. They had come a long way from Earth. They had lost many friends. But they had not stopped. Admiral Park Tai-Wu stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn and looked at the enemy homeworld on his screen. Somewhere down there, in the slave labor centers, his daughter might still be alive. He had fought across half the galaxy to reach this moment. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "the Velari are broadcasting a surrender offer." High Lord Cassith's face appeared on the screen. He looked nothing like the proud creature who had called humans cattle. His eyes were hollow. His voice shook. "We offer unconditional surrender," Cassith said. "We will release all human slaves. We will pay any price you demand. Just please stop the killing." Tai-Wu did not feel satisfaction. He did not feel joy. He only felt tired. "You will release every human prisoner," he said. "Your military will disarm. Your leaders will face trial for their crimes. The Velari Dominion will be dissolved. You will keep your planet and your lives. That is more mercy than you showed us." Cassith bowed his head. "We accept." Human ships descended on Velari Prime like a storm. But they did not burn cities. They did not slaughter civilians. They went straight to the slave centers and began opening cages, Lieutenant. Choi Nari landed her fighter near the largest labor camp on the planet. She had been fighting for months without rest. Her eyes were hollow, and her hands shook when she climbed out of the cockpit. But when she saw the first slaves walking free, something inside her broke open. These were her people. Humans who had suffered for years. Humans who had given up hope. And now they were being saved. A small boy, maybe 5 years old, stood at the edge of the crowd. He was thin and dirty and scared. He watched Nari approach with huge eyes. "Are you an angel?" he asked. Nari knelt down. For the first time in years, she laughed. It was a real laugh, not cold or bitter. "No," she said, "just human." She picked him up and carried him to the rescue ships. He weighed almost nothing. The Velari had barely fed him. But he was alive, and he would grow up free. Admiral Taiwu searched for 3 days. He went from camp to camp, looking at every face, checking every record. On the 3rd day, he found her. Minji was 20 years old now. She had been a girl when they took her. Now she was a woman with scars on her hands and pain in her eyes. But when she saw her father, something sparked in those eyes. Something that the Velari had never managed to kill. "You came," she whispered. Taiwu pulled her into his arms and held her like he would never let go. "I promised," he said. "I promised I would find you." Father and daughter cried together in the ruins of the place that had been her prison. Around them, soldiers were freeing thousands more. The Velari guards had thrown down their weapons and fled. They knew what humans did to slavers, but there was no massacre, no revenge killing. Human soldiers gathered the Velari leaders and put them in cells to await trial. They gave food to civilians who had been told that humans would eat them. They set up hospitals for the sick and injured. The galaxy watched in confusion. This was not what they expected. "Why do you not kill them all?" A council observer asked General Beak Sujin. "They would have killed you." Sujin looked at the Velari prisoners being led away. "Because we are not them," she said. "We did not fight this war to become monsters. We fought to free our people. We fought to prove that might does not make right. If we slaughter innocents now, we become what we hated." The observer had no response. Weeks passed. The trials began. Velari leaders who had ordered attacks on human colonies faced justice. Some were executed. Most were imprisoned for the rest of their lives. The evidence of their crimes was broadcast across the galaxy, so no one could deny what had happened. High Lord Kasseth was among those tried. He showed no remorse. Even at the end, he called humans inferior. "History will prove me right," he said before his execution. "The strong always rule the weak." Ambassador Kang Yuna attended the trial. She stood up when Kasseth finished speaking. "You are wrong," she said. "History will remember that humanity chose to be strong so we could protect the weak. That is the difference between us. You used power to enslave. We use power to free." Kasseth died the next day. The Velari Dominion officially ended. But the story did not end there. In the months that followed, something unexpected happened. Other species, races that had been oppressed and ignored for centuries, began reaching out to humanity. They had watched the war. They had seen humans fight for each other. They wanted to know if Earth would help them too. Ambassador Yuna received a transmission from a species called the Methine. They were small, peaceful creatures who had been paying tribute to a larger empire for generations. "Will you help us become free?" Their leader asked. Yun thought about it for a long time. Humanity was tired. They had lost many lives in the war. They wanted peace, but then she remembered her niece, little Somin, who had been taken at 12 years old. Somin had not survived the war. She had died in a Velari mine just weeks before humans arrived to free her. "Yes," Yuna said finally. We will help. She sent messages to other species who had been reaching out. The Krellin, who had been conquered centuries ago. The Veth, whose children were taken as servants. The Doreen, who had been forced from their homeworld. Humanity stands with the oppressed, her message said. We will not watch others suffer as we suffered. Together, we can build something better. Counselor Mevith received reports of these new alliances. Human ships were appearing in distant systems, not to conquer, but to protect. Weak species were standing up to their masters for the first time. The old order was crumbling. What have we done? He whispered to himself. He had thought that offering humanity a piece of slavery would solve everything. Instead, he had created something far more dangerous. He had created hope. On Earth, Admiral Taiwu retired from the military. He bought a small house near the ocean in Korea and lived there with his daughter. Minji had nightmares some nights. The scars from her years in slavery would never fully heal. But she was free, and she was home. One evening, they sat together watching the sun set over the water. Was it worth it? Minji asked. All the people who died? Taiwu thought about Captain Ru Han-su, holding the gate. He thought about the soldiers who never came home. He thought about the millions who had been freed. I do not know, he admitted. I only know that we could not have chosen differently. Some things are worth fighting for, even if the cost is terrible. Minji leaned her head on his shoulder. Thank you, she said, for not giving up. Far above them, in the darkness of space, human ships patrolled the borders of a new alliance. They were no longer alone. Dozens of species had joined them, building a new order based on protection instead of conquest. The galaxy had offered humanity a quiet death, a slow surrender, a peaceful slavery. Instead, humanity had chosen to fight. They had chosen to rise. They had chosen to become something the galaxy had never seen before. And now, nothing would ever be the same. The stars were changing. And for the first time in 10,000 years, that change meant hope.